The idea of labeling Golden Age Hollywood actors as dumbest by nature is tricky and can be misleading or unfair. Intelligence is multidimensional, and many public figures, especially actors from early Hollywood, were often typecast or presented in a certain way by studios and the media that doesn't reflect their real intellectual capacity. That said, some stars from the era gained reputations, rightly or wrongly, for being less intellectually inclined or for making questionable decisions. Often, these reputations were based on anecdotes, tabloid gossip, or the contrast between their on-screen persona and real-life behavior. Here are a few actors sometimes seen as less intellectually sharp, though it's important to view these reputations with skepticism. Marilyn Monroe is often remembered for her dumb blonde persona, but this image was more a product of Hollywood typecasting than a reflection of her true intelligence. While she played roles that emphasized innocence and naivety, Monroe was, in reality, a deeply curious and introspective person. She owned a personal library of over 400 books, covering literature, philosophy, and politics. Her interest in self-improvement led her to study acting seriously under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio in New York, where she was regarded as a dedicated and talented student. Monroe also maintained friendships with intellectuals, including author Arthur Miller, whom she married. Despite her efforts to be taken seriously, she struggled against an industry that prioritized image over depth. The lasting stereotype of Monroe as unintelligent is both unfair and inaccurate. She was a woman shaped by a tough upbringing, navigating a system that didn't value her complexity. Her legacy is a reminder that public perception can distort reality, especially for women in entertainment. Monroe was not dumb, she was smart, sensitive, and fighting to be understood. Jane Mansfield was widely known in the 1950s and 1960s as a blonde bombshell, often compared to Marilyn Monroe. Hollywood heavily marketed her as a sexy, ditzy starlet, playing into the dumb blonde stereotype that appealed to the era's media and audiences. However, behind the exaggerated persona was a woman of notable intelligence and ambition. Mansfield reportedly had an IQ of 149 and was fluent in 5 languages, including Spanish, German, and Italian. She studied drama and physics at the University of Texas and later at UCLA. Despite her academic background and keen business sense, she was one of the first actresses to embrace self-promotion as a brand. The public rarely saw this side of her. Her fame was largely tied to publicity stunts and roles that emphasized her physical appeal. Like many women of her time, Mansfield was boxed into a narrow image that overshadowed her capabilities. Her story illustrates how Hollywood often sacrifices depth for marketability, and how smart, talented women were forced to play dumb to succeed in a male-dominated industry. Johnny Weissmuller, best known for playing Tarzan in the 1930s and 1940s, became an enduring symbol of primal masculinity in Hollywood. His portrayal was iconic but simplistic, often limited to grunts, swinging vines, and monosyllabic speech. This limited dialogue led many to perceive him as lacking intellectual depth, both on and off screen. In reality, Weissmuller was not an actor by training but a world-class athlete. He won 5 Olympic gold medals in swimming and set multiple world records, making him one of the most accomplished swimmers of his time. However, his transition to acting never strayed far from his Tarzan image, and he rarely took on roles that required emotional or intellectual complexity. He was typecast early and remained largely within that mold, which contributed to the public perception that he lacked range or depth. Though he wasn't known for scholarly pursuits, it would be unfair to label him as unintelligent. Rather, Weissmuller's legacy reflects how Hollywood often capitalized on physicality over personality, reducing multifaceted individuals to one-dimensional roles that limited how they were remembered. Judy Holiday was widely known for portraying dumb blonde characters, most famously in the 1950 film Born Yesterday, for which she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. Her on-screen persona was that of a ditzy, clueless woman, which led many to assume she was like that in real life. However, Holiday was actually remarkably intelligent. She reportedly had an IQ of 172, placing her in the genius range, and was incredibly quick-witted. One of the most famous examples of her intellect was her appearance on the game show What's My Line, where she guessed the mystery occupation with just a single question. Holiday was also politically aware and stood firm during the McCarthy era, refusing to name names when questioned by the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee. Despite her carefully crafted image, she was a complex, sharp, and thoughtful individual. Her ability to convincingly play less intelligent characters was a testament to her acting skill, not a reflection of her own intellect. Judy Holiday remains one of classic Hollywood's most underestimated minds. George Raft, one of Hollywood's most recognizable tough guys during the 1930s and 1940s, built his career playing gangsters and streetwise characters. Off-screen, he was famously linked to actual underworld figures, including Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, which blurred the line between his film persona and real life. Many perceived Raft as unintellectual or even unintelligent due to his limited formal education and rough background growing up in New York's Hell's Kitchen. However, while not academically inclined, Raft was far from dumb. He was highly street-smart, knew how to navigate Hollywood's complex studio system, and made shrewd career decisions, although he also notoriously turned down major roles, including in Casablanca and Double Indemnity, which hurt his long-term legacy. Raft's intelligence manifested more in social and practical domains than in bookish or artistic pursuits. His reputation as a simple tough guy overshadowed the cunning survival instincts that helped him succeed in both Hollywood and among dangerous real-life associations. Ultimately, George Raft may not have been a scholar, but he was no fool. Errol Flynn, one of Golden Age Hollywood's most iconic leading men, was best known for his swashbuckling roles in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. With his devil-may-care charm and reputation for wild living, Flynn became synonymous with reckless hedonism. Off-screen, he was infamous for his womanizing, partying, and brushes with the law. This lifestyle led many to assume he lacked depth or intellect. However, beneath the rakish image, Flynn was a surprisingly reflective and intelligent man. He had a strong interest in writing and journalism, and even published a semi-autobiographical novel, B. Men's, in 1937, followed by his autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, which remains a compelling and articulate account of his life. Flynn was also politically curious and well-read, though often dismissed due to his antics and scandals. While he certainly indulged in excess, it would be a mistake to label him as unintelligent. His charisma and sharp wit, both on and off-screen, suggest a man of considerable insight, often overshadowed by the myth of his own legend. Mae West, an iconic figure in Golden Age Hollywood, was often reduced to the stereotype of a bawdy, overtly sexual woman thanks to her famous one-liners and sultry persona. In films like She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel, West played characters known for their double entendres and sexual allure, making her one of the most controversial figures of the time. However, the public image of West as a simple, sexy star belied her true intellect. West was an astute businesswoman who not only wrote most of her own scripts but also took charge of her career in a male-dominated industry. She was a master of media manipulation, using her image to captivate the public and maintain control over her projects. West knew how to turn her controversial persona into a lucrative brand, which was rare for women at the time. Far from being dumb, as her on-screen roles might suggest, Mae West was a savvy, sharp, and strategic figure who used wit and intelligence to secure her place in Hollywood history. Tony Curtis, an actor known for his handsome looks and charming persona, was initially pigeonholed as a pretty face in Hollywood. Early in his career, he was often cast in light, glamorous roles, leading many to dismiss his acting ability as shallow. Films like Some Like It Hot capitalized on his good looks, further cementing the perception that he was more style than substance. However, Curtis's acting depth became apparent as he matured. In films like The Defiant Ones and Sweet Smell of Success, he demonstrated a wide emotional range and proved he could handle complex, dramatic roles. Curtis's portrayal of a white man in blackface in The Defiant Ones earned him critical acclaim and solidified his ability to tackle serious themes. Throughout his career, he proved to be much more than just a heartthrob, moving beyond his early typecasting and showing a versatility that was initially overlooked. Tony Curtis's transformation from a superficial leading man to a respected actor revealed a depth that many had underestimated, earning him a place as one of Hollywood's more underrated talents. Lana Turner, one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars of the Golden Age, was often seen as a beauty more than a talented actress. Her striking looks and smoldering presence on screen overshadowed her acting ability early in her career, with many assuming her appeal was based primarily on her appearance. Turner's personal life, filled with high-profile relationships, marriages, and scandals, also contributed to her public image as a Hollywood queen of glamour, rather than a woman of substance. However, beneath the surface, Turner demonstrated remarkable resilience and savvy. She navigated the ups and downs of her career with intelligence, making strategic choices that helped her maintain relevance in the industry. While not celebrated for academic pursuits, Turner's emotional intelligence and ability to weather personal and professional storms showed a woman who was more than just a pretty face. Her talent and persistence eventually earned her respect, especially for her roles in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice and Peyton Place. Lana Turner may not have been a scholar, but she was far from lacking in smarts and strength. Helen Lamar, often celebrated as one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood during the Golden Age, was more than just a glamorous movie star. While she captivated audiences in films like Algiers and Samson and Delilah, she was often underestimated for her intellect due to her stunning looks. Lamar's beauty overshadowed an incredible mind. She was not just an actress but an inventor. During World War II, she co-invented a technology called frequency hopping, designed to prevent the enemy from jamming torpedo guidance systems. This invention, which she developed alongside composer George Antheil, became the foundation for modern wireless communication technologies like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. Despite facing many obstacles as a woman in a male-dominated field, Lamar's groundbreaking work was largely unrecognized during her lifetime. Today, she is celebrated not only for her iconic film roles but also for her significant contributions to technology, showing that her intelligence far surpassed the beauty that made her famous. Helen Lamar proves that genius can come in unexpected forms, hidden beneath the surface of fame. Robert Mitchum, with his sleepy-eyed gaze and laid-back demeanor, became the quintessential tough guy of Hollywood's golden age. Known for roles in films like Out of the Past and The Night of the Hunter, he exuded a cool, almost indifferent charm that led many to assume he was lazy or disinterested. His off-screen persona, marked by brushes with the law, heavy drinking, and a disdain for Hollywood pretension, reinforced the idea that he was a simple, detached figure. However, beneath that aloof exterior, Mitchum was highly intelligent and deeply introspective. He was a gifted poet and musician who read widely and had a sharp, often cynical wit. Mitchum was also a nonconformist who challenged authority and resisted the studio system's attempts to mold him. Despite his casual attitude, he took his craft seriously, delivering nuanced performances that often defied the stereotypical roles he was given. Far from being dumb or disengaged, Mitchum was a complex, thoughtful man who used his low-key persona as a shield. His intellect, though understated, was as much a part of his legacy as his iconic screen presence. Mickey Rooney, one of the most enduring stars of Hollywood's golden age, rose to fame as a child actor in the Andy Hardy series, where his boundless energy and affable charm made him a household name. As he transitioned into adult roles, Rooney remained a prolific performer, starring in musicals, dramas, and comedies. However, his over-the-top personality and frantic on-screen energy led many to view him as more of an entertainer than a thoughtful actor. His tumultuous personal life, marked by 8 marriages, financial instability, and public scandals, further shaped the perception that he lacked depth or discipline. Despite this, Rooney was incredibly talented and possessed a strong understanding of show business mechanics. He was one of the few actors able to maintain a steady career from the silent era through television, a testament to his adaptability and work ethic. While he may not have been considered an intellectual in the traditional sense, Mickey Rooney was a showbiz veteran who knew how to survive in a brutal industry. His brilliance lay in performance and resilience, making him far more complex than his lively public image suggested. Zsa Zsa Gabor, one of Hollywood's most flamboyant and recognizable personalities, became famous as much for her glamorous lifestyle and multiple marriages as for her film roles. Known for her Hungarian accent, sparkling wit, and catchphrases like, "darling," she played up the role of the charming, wealthy socialite to perfection. Because of this persona, many dismissed her as frivolous or lacking depth. However, behind the glitz and theatrics was a woman who was far more media-savvy and strategic than she let on. Gabor understood the power of publicity and used it expertly to keep herself in the spotlight for decades, often with little help from her film work. She turned her private life into a public spectacle long before reality TV existed, making herself famous simply for being famous, something that would later become a blueprint for celebrity culture. While she didn't pursue intellectual endeavors publicly, Zsa Zsa was far from unintelligent. She mastered the art of self-promotion and built a lasting brand on charm, controversy, and charisma. Her legacy proves she was no fool, just an expert at playing the part. Tab Hunter, a Hollywood heartthrob of the 1950s, was often seen as the clean-cut boy next door, known for his blonde good looks and wholesome screen presence. He starred in popular films like Battle Cry and Damn Yankees, but critics rarely took him seriously as an actor, often dismissing him as a product of studio-driven stardom. Behind this polished image, however, Hunter led a far more complex and introspective life. At a time when being openly gay in Hollywood could end a career, he lived in constant fear of being outed. The pressure to maintain a heterosexual public persona was immense, and it took a toll on his personal and professional life. Later in his life, Hunter broke his silence and told his story in the candid and thoughtful memoir Tab Hunter Confidential, revealing the emotional struggles he faced and the dual life he had to lead. His honesty and vulnerability redefined how fans viewed him. While he may have been dismissed as a pretty face in his prime, Tab Hunter ultimately showed that he possessed quiet strength, sensitivity, and a profound inner life. Doris Day, beloved for her sunny persona and wholesome roles in films like Pillow Talk and Calamity Jane, was often perceived as the embodiment of the all-American girl, sweet, naive, and cheerful. This on-screen image led some to underestimate her intelligence and complexity. However, behind the scenes, Day was a sharp and resilient woman who navigated the entertainment industry with remarkable savvy. She began her career as a big band singer before transitioning into one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. Despite her lighthearted screen roles, she faced significant personal and financial challenges, including being mismanaged by her third husband, who left her deeply in debt. Instead of folding under the pressure, Day took control of her career, successfully suing for the money owed and later focusing her energy on causes she cared about, especially animal welfare. She founded the Doris Day Animal Foundation, which became a major part of her legacy. Far from being the simple ingenue she often portrayed, Doris Day was a smart businesswoman, a fighter, and an advocate. Her life was a powerful contrast to her carefully maintained screen image.